Hey everybody, Mr. Andrews here. First off, I want to say sorry about my stream earlier on Thursday. We had to cut it a little short because of my twins who were crying their heads off. I don't think they wanted me streaming, so they decided to wake up a little bit early from their nap. And I said, before I signed off, that I'd try to get back. Streaming later in the day if I could. I couldn't do it live, unfortunately, so I'm going to make a little video here for you guys just to kind of finish up the reading from the Judicial Branch, the last kind of section of the social studies packet. Again, this was supposed to be for the 7th grade, but again, I'm more than okay if 8th graders or 6th graders join us on Thursdays. And, you know, all the grades have the same work, so it really does not matter what day you join us. If you just want to come for your specified day, that's fine. 8th grade is on Wednesdays, 7th grade is on Thursdays, and 6th grade is on Fridays. But I know that some of us may be busy doing other things, so just try to join in live when you can. I always stream live from about 1 to 2, about an hour long. And what we've been doing is just going over the packet. I've been doing the reading, going a little bit more in detail here. So I hope that this extension that I have on Chrome allows you guys to see my screen, so I can be a little bit more direct and kind of give you more guidance, I guess, with the reading. So earlier today, again, we started looking at the Judicial Branch before I had to call it a day because of the twins, so we're going to pick back up. But what we got through was just the introduction, kind of reading the vocabulary and context, and this really starts towards the end of the packet. Again, this packet isn't meant for you guys to be done in like 2 days. This is meant for that 3-week period, that Governor DeWine has asked schools to take off to limit the spread of the pandemic. So again, just a quick recap. This is what we started with. Again, hopefully you can see my screen. But looking here at the Judicial Branch, okay, we quickly kind of went over the vocab terms. So looking at things like the Supreme Court, this idea of federalism, or what does it mean when we talk about the federal government? Again, you can see that demonstrated, or you can see the example that they have for you here in number 2. That's talking about the central or the national government of the United States. Court, again, if you're a fan of any of the Law and Order shows, you should be pretty familiar with what a court is. And those that go to Haven Arrest, I believe you passed the court in downtown Akron. I know that's probably been a long time since any of us have gone there. And you see a couple of the vocab terms here described in this picture towards the bottom. Excuse me. And we looked at a trial, that legal process to decide an issue such as guilt or innocence. As a reminder, in the United States, people are innocent until they are proven guilty. I also made the remark that if you like arguing, or you think that you are a pretty good person in an argument, you often get your way, maybe potentially look into becoming a lawyer. Could be a nice career option for you. So what we did was take a look at this vocab in context, and then we kind of just quickly reviewed these check your understanding questions. Again, these are the ones we generally would answer as a whole class. For the students that were active and participating in the chat, had you answer a little bit. I know like Jeremiah did earlier. I think Katana was pretty active in there as well. So if you have the chance, sorry that my screen cut out for you. If you have the chance, just answer these questions in your head. If you want to write responses kind of in this area down here underneath, you can, but it's not really required. What we are really looking at and what is going to be graded is the work coming from those workbook pages that kind of follow the reading. So what we're going to do is take a look here, starting at the top of page 228. Okay. So the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court explains and interprets the Constitution. Justices are appointed by the President and approved by the Senate. Again, this kind of goes back to this idea of checks and balances. So this whole packet that you guys received really started with this idea of separation of powers, looking at how the government is set up into these three different branches of government. The legislative, can think Congress, their job is to make the laws. You have the executive branch, okay, their job is to enforce the laws. Think of the president in that case. And then the judicial branch, right? Think of the Supreme Court. Their job is to look over the Constitution and see if any current laws maybe violate the Constitution. Right? We'll try to go a little bit more into the system of checks and balances after we establish these three branches. But first and foremost, we have to kind of hammer out and really identify what are the three branches of our government and what are their roles, what are their responsibilities, and who makes up those different branches. And then, like I said, we'll get into this idea of checks and balances and what that really means. I'll come back to the reading here. And the justices serve for life unless they decide to retire. It's one of the only cases here in the United States where somebody who is appointed has no term limit. And justices can serve for as long as they want. The most recent case of this was when Justice Scalia passed away a few years back, and there was a vacant seat. There was 8 justices on the Supreme Court for a little while, and there was some issues on whether a president in a certain time could appoint another judge or another Supreme Court justice. So that was a pretty big issue a few years back. So they can be removed from office for wrongdoing, and we're back in the reading right here. The head judge of the Supreme Court is called the Chief Justice. Currently, that is John Roberts, if I remember correctly. The Supreme Court's decisions are final and cannot be appealed. Again, this process of appeal, that's one of our vocab words. If we look back at the reading here, I can go back to lawyers. For that side can appeal to a higher court. Supreme Court is the highest law or the highest court in the land. So there's no court above the United States Supreme Court for our country. So, if there was a smaller court like in Akron, say they didn't necessarily, like a lawyer didn't like the ruling, they could appeal their case. They can have it heard by a more stronger court, like in the state of Ohio. Or then they can keep moving up the chain. And this is what this little diagram over here kind of shows, the federal court system. And again, I know the pictures in black and white are kind of hard to see, at least on the computer they are, so maybe on paper they're easier for you. But we'll kind of go a little bit more into detail with that diagram in just a second. So looking at the federal courts here, so the district courts and courts of appeal are other examples of federal courts. District courts are the first level of federal courts. If lawyers appeal a district court case, the Court of Appeal reviews it. There are 13 regional courts of appeal. They are also known as circuit courts. So I know that's pretty heavy on the vocab, and the terminology is kind of wordy and kind of confusing. But pretty simply, what this is looking at is just this federal court system and how it all works in this kind of hierarchy. There's the Supreme Court at the very top that you can see right here. Okay, that's the Supreme Court. Let's see, mostly reviews appeals, judges. There's no jury often with the Supreme Court. You can see that here. Then there's the Court of Appeals. Okay, reviews appeals, judges, no jury again, and district courts. So these are kind of the newer cases, judge and a jury. So these are kind of the ones you might see on like TV shows like Law and Order. Again, these questions that you see, like referring to diagrams that are kind of put in the middle of the reading, those aren't ones that you necessarily need to focus on. If you want to answer them, scribble the answers in right underneath, that's fine. Or maybe draw an arrow. I can just write it down here or something if you really want. But that's not what we're going to be really looking for when we grade this work. So court procedures, kind of where all the drama comes from, often when you look at these on a TV show. So when two sides disagree, they can have their case heard before a court. Lawyers present arguments and evidence. Depending on what type of court it is, a jury or judge considers the evidence. If you guys remember those like seventh and eighth graders now, I know I got called for jury duty last year. I think Miss Fawn did and Mr. Fosnight all within a very short time of each other. So uh, it, I don't think any of us really got very far in that process, but when you guys get to be of age, like 18, your name gets put into the pool and you will at some point in your life be called for jury duty. This could be a really cool eye-opening experience for you guys to kind of see how this whole process works. Um, I wish the case would have gone a little bit farther so I can actually see it take place. But if I remember correctly, I think the defendant settled, or they reached some sort of agreement before the actual trial took place. But anyway, we'll get back to the reading. Okay, so start at the second paragraph right here. Hopefully you can see where I'm clicking. I'm still trying to figure out the software here. So in the Supreme Court, the justices do not always agree. The view of most of the justices is called the majority opinion. So there are 9 Supreme Court justices. Now, some people think that maybe there should be more, given the way that some judges vote, or maybe can kind of shift the balance a little bit. Some think that there should be less. But 9 is a good number, and it's always important to have a odd number. And the reasoning for that is that you can have a majority, obviously. If you had, let's say, 4 judges or maybe 6 judges, you run the risk of getting a tie, a 3-3 vote if there's 6, or a 2-2 vote if there's only 4 judges. But if there's 9, there's always going to be a majority, whether it's 8-1, 7-2, 5-4. You guys get the idea. The view of the justices who disagree with the majority is called the dissenting opinion. Okay? If the justices are in agreement, it is called a unanimous decision. So if all 9 justices agree on a ruling, it would be a unanimous. Okay? You probably won't see a whole lot of that right now, just because of how, I guess, politicized the judicial branch has become in the last several decades. Even though it's not meant to be a um, it's not meant to be a partisan, or it's not meant to favor either the Democrats or the Republicans. Their job is to really just look at the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, and really interpret it and try to get a good understanding of it. Uh-oh, it's 11 o'clock and I hear one of the twins waking up. Maybe I'm being too loud. Okay. And here we see an example of academic vocabulary. Apologies if I'm quiet. I'm trying not to talk too much, or too loudly, I guess, to wake up one of the boys who seem to be stirring a little bit. Okay, I think we're in the clear. Again, this check your understanding questions. I'm not requiring you guys to answer this. These are just things to keep in mind, or to answer inside your head after you finish the reading. The little bits afterwards, researching inquiry, it's asking you to use your sources. If you want to look into these kind of things, you can. Marbury versus Madison is probably the first very important case in Supreme Court history. It kind of led to this idea called judicial review, which really set the stage for what we know the Supreme Court to be, what their job is today, to look at the laws and see, is this constitutional or is it unconstitutional, and should a law be changed? Think again, like Brown versus the Board of Education, or the legalization of same-sex marriage throughout the whole country. So these kind of issues that follow the ideals and the mentality of the country as it continues to grow and as it continues to age. Other questions: who are the current members of the Supreme Court? This could be something you look up, and you can Google this really quick if you really wanted to. You'll see some people who have been on there a long time. If you ever read with Miss Downing, sometimes she likes to wear her RBJ shirt, her Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay? She is a Supreme Court justice, and a very famous and popular one at that. And question number 3 there: who's the first African American appointed to the Supreme Court, and when was he appointed? Again, these are all kind of things you can quickly Google. And that's what's crazy about the technology we all have in our pocket, or most of us have in our pockets. able to look at this kind of information, before you need to go to your school's library or to the city library and kind of look up this information. And this writing prompt that you see kind of towards the bottom, not something you need to do necessarily. Again, if you want to challenge yourself, it could help you, but not what we're going to be grading. There's a pretty cool primary source snippet over here on the side. It's a quote. And it says, "Our Constitution is colorblind. All citizens are equal before the law." This is from a Supreme Court Justice, John Marshall Harlan, in 1896, so well over 100 years ago. And it's just really posing this question to you. What do you think Justice Harlan meant when he said the United States Constitution is colorblind? Okay. So it could be something you, again, want to answer down below, but not required to. But what you are going to be graded on and what we are asking you to complete for the social studies is this, or are these pages from the workbook. Again, the page numbers at the bottom kind of jump back and forth a little bit. So some of the page numbers you may see doubled because some of them are copied from the textbook that you guys, or that we use sometimes in class. And some of these pages, like this one and the next few, come from the blue student workbook that sometimes it will make, some class work activities or maybe some homework or busy work sometimes for you guys. So that's why some of the page numbers jump back and forth a lot, but this is where you're going to be graded from. Okay. A lot of these ones where you see like the A, section B and stuff like that, and it goes through like section D, E, G, and F, I think. You should be able to complete just about all of those. Even if they ask you to work with a partner, again, assume the role of yourself and a partner just to make sure you get the requirement or the amount of work done that you need to. But for this one, looks like you're just choosing the correct vocab term for section A. Circle the word or words that complete each sentence. Again, answers are going to be in the text. There's going to be some helpful hints and clues that you can always refer back to. So there's an example one done for you. The Supreme Court is the highest or lowest court in the nation. Obviously, it is the highest. Okay. So if you commit a trial or crime, you do something that is against the law. This one, I would hope for just about all of us, is kind of common sense. This would be if you commit a crime, okay, you do something that's against the law. Again, I would imagine most of us know that. And again, this one is really just looking at, picking the correct vocab word to make the sentence true or accurate. All right, for section B, we are looking at completing the paragraph and can just fill in the blank. Again, using the vocabulary words from the previous pages. Again, there's one that is done for you with courts, so you can see that one is kind of crossed out there. So the judicial branch explains and interprets the laws of the country. It includes all of the courts of the blank governments. Okay, so then we would need to find which word makes the most sense here. Again, you guys, this is like the third time that you've done this. Or fourth, I guess we'll say, since you've looked at the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the formations of our government or separation of powers. So we should kind of know how this whole thing is set up. So again, just refer back to the text if you're not sure. If you have questions, ask on a live chat whenever I'm doing one of those for you guys, or ask in Hangouts, email, post, or leave a message on Google Classroom. I'll try to get back to you. I know a couple of us, I think Danny and Marcellus posted some things on Google Classroom, and I got back to you like earlier today, this being Thursday. I know it's for some of you, or maybe it was like a day later, so apologies. I'm trying to check that as much as I can, and sometimes I don't always get notified on when students leave a comment or post something, so I'll try to be a little bit better at that. All right, so if we're moving along here, we see section C, the Supreme Court. Again, taking notes. Taking notes isn't something that we have you guys do a whole lot in social studies room. I'd like to change that next year, actually. Maybe switch things up a little bit. Get some of us used to the workload that you may be asked to get ready for, like in 8th grade and definitely in high school, just to give you guys a little change of pace. And I know science does a good job with having you guys take notes, so if we can have more consistency between the classrooms, I think that'd be a good thing. But it's asking us to read the Supreme Court on page 228, which we did a few minutes ago, and then take notes on the ideas below. So again, this one, like for example, Supreme Court's job. In this case, you can just really paraphrase the definition or what the role of the Supreme Court is. Try not to make it word for word. Try to put in your own words if you can. But yeah, quick bullet point or one sentence. Try to use some vocab words in there to really help to hopefully have this make sense for you guys. Supreme Court justices, again, quick bullet points to maybe explain what a Supreme Court justice is, maybe how many of justices there are, how long they can serve, things like that. Again, you're just kind of recapping the information from before. And this last part is asking about the Supreme Court's decisions. What are those 3 different types of decisions that the justices can have? If you remember, one of those can be a unanimous decision where all the justices or all the judges agree on one thing. There's a couple other ones in there, so just make sure we kind of look over those to hopefully give you some insight or some tips to how to complete this part. Okay, so if we're looking at part D, the federal courts, it's asking us to read the federal courts on page 228. Again, we just did that a few minutes ago. Then fill in the blanks in the paragraph below. So more fill in the blanks here, but this time you do not have a word bank, it looks like, so you might need to look specifically at the text. So the Supreme Court, the blank, and the blank are the 3 types of federal courts. Okay, so they give us they give us the Supreme Court. Now we need 2 other courts. Again, it's asking go to the federal courts. You can also refer to the diagram. That might be kind of helpful. So should be pulling up to 228 here. So it's having us look at this part. Okay. So they give us the Supreme Court. Then what are the other 2 types of courts? Okay, to kind of help complete those next pages. Or those next fill in the blanks, my bad. Okay. Again, just kind of going back to the text, everything's in there. None of this is meant to be super tricky or trying to pull a trick on you guys. Just make sure you're taking your time to get these done and get them done the best you can, because you guys, if you need reminding, you are being graded on this whenever we do collect this work from you. Okay, so section E, and we got section F. It looks like we got in section G. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, it's like 11:15, so it's getting late. I'm trying to get this video up and finished for you guys so 7th grade can watch the rest of theirs. Or if any 6th grade students or 8th grade students were also at the watching my stream earlier where I had to cut it short. So this is why I'm doing this late, because I know everybody's sleeping and I can probably get it done. Okay. So section E, again, is asking us to check out that diagram. Look at the diagram on page 228 of the student book. Again, we just had that up there a minute ago, and answer the questions. So this one, again, two questions for number 1 and just 1 question for number 2. So again, just go back to the chart that we were looking at and look at this federal court system. It's asking which one is at the top, okay, and which one is at the bottom. And again, on my page, the text right here is a little hard to see. Hopefully, since you guys have the physical paper version, it's somewhat easier to see for you guys. Okay, and we're not going to be doing this for you, but we can kind of give you the direction, and you guys can do the rest. All right, and F, section F here, court procedures. So it's having us read court procedures. So again, sorry for yawning. And it's having us work with a partner to answer the questions. Obviously, for this one, you don't need to work with a partner, I don't think. If you want to text somebody with this one, you can. But again, I think you can take on the role of your work, what you're responsible for, and what they ask you to do with a partner. So it's 5 quick questions. Again, keep it short. Don't try to go information overload here. Just make sure it's enough to answer the question. And the last part here is section G, hypothesizing. Okay, so why do you think there are 3 levels of courts in the judicial branch? How might the system help maintain justice and fairness in the country? This is really your opinion. So just make sure if you provide a reason, you're able to back it up, or go into a little bit of detail and explain. And they give you some little helpful hints here on the side as well. So tell why you think something happens and give reasons to support. So pretty much echoing what I just told you. So it's your opinion. Just make sure you back it up. And these extension activities, these are often the ones that ask you to maybe do a little extra to work with a classmate or work with a small group. We understand that you can't do that unless you're video chatting or texting or whatever with other friends where you can get this work done, and that'd be great. But if you don't have that ability, there's still some things that you could or that you can do individually. And there's been a couple questions I've seen students ask, how do I work with partner? Do I need to present in class? Things like that. No. Make sure we're doing our best, though, to answer or to meet the requirements to get as much of these questions answered and complete as we can. So read about a landmark Supreme Court case decision, then answer the questions. Okay. So there's not too much reading here. It looks like, two relatively short paragraphs. Okay. So this first paragraph, reading about a landmark case, and it does give a little vocab section here to kind of help you guys. Well, that is not at all where I put that pen marker, so my bad, y'all. I was trying to help you out. Let's see. So I don't know why it was all super. Well, ignore that because it doesn't want to seem to cooperate right now. So when a case is brought before the Supreme Court, the court must review it and decide what the Constitution says about the issue. Supreme Court's decision, sorry guys, affect federal and state laws. Some Supreme Court decisions have influenced laws in a very significant way. These cases are called landmark cases. So again, what I was trying to point to with the red circle here, some vocab. So landmark means important event. Then things we haven't gone into yet, confess and interrogation. So a landmark case that resulted in the creation of a new law was the Miranda versus Arizona in 1966. A man named Ernesto Miranda confessed to a crime during a police interrogation. But at the time of the interrogation, he did not know that he had the right to talk to a lawyer first and say nothing to the police. For this reason, he protested the use of his confession during his trial. The Supreme Court agreed with Miranda, the man, Ernesto Miranda, and declared that when police arrest people, they must tell them that their right to remain silent and talk to a lawyer. These are known as the, quote, Miranda rights. And this is often what you see in TV shows, like kind of in the beginning where they're setting up the case, or they capture the bad guy. You don't always handcuff the guy or put the criminal into the police cars. Like you have the right to remain silent. Anything you can say will be used against you in a court of law. Blah blah blah. That whole thing. Those are the Miranda rights. Again, the authenticity or how accurate those lines are portrayed in TV show, that's again kind of up for debate, but that's often what you see in a TV show or maybe a movie are those Miranda rights. All right, then looks like we have 3 questions, kind of short answer style questions off this. So when the Supreme Court reviews a case, what do they base the decisions on? Again, make sure we're going back into the text and you can find that first one kind of here in the introduction paragraph. Okay. So again, just please refer back to the reading. It's going to help. So why didn't Ernesto Miranda want his confession to be used at his trial? Again, just looking at what the text tells us. Okay, some of this may be kind of explicit, which means it's there in the open for us, or in some cases it may be implicit, which means things are implied. But often in the case of like social studies like this, it is going to be explicit. It's not a work of literature where they're trying to drive home some deeper meaning. Talk to Mr. Murray, Miss Miller about things like that. But really, we're kind of just going back in the text and using that here. And what was the effect of the Supreme Court's decision in Miranda versus Arizona? Okay. So again, just make sure we go back to the reading again, and you should be able to find what you need there. And I think this is the very last page of the packet work. But yes, please, try to complete as much as you can on all the extension activities for the judicial branch, legislative branch, executive branch, and the creation of our government. That way, you're challenging yourself a little bit. And if some of them ask you to give a short presentation to the class, you don't need to do that. Just complete the steps prior, okay? Because you can still get some of the work done. So these are going to be the types of things that we are grading. Also, these workbook pages that have the section A through G often, that's what we're going to be grading. Again, this work was given to you with the mindset that it would take approximately about like 3 to 4 weeks to complete. If you're done with it already, that's great. Double check it, review it, um, make sure you're taking your time on it, and not trying to stress out too much. Again, this is not meant to be super difficult or super hard. If you have questions, please ask, whether it's on Google Classroom, Hangouts, email, or maybe even Class Dojo. If you're a parent connected to Class Dojo, they can, send us messages on there, I believe. So we're doing our best to try to stay connected with both students and family members. But we know that for some of us, internet access or getting signed into a Chromebook or a computer or phone or whatever isn't always the easiest thing with your school account. But yeah, tomorrow will be the dedicated sixth grade time. Probably what I'll do is kind of just do a quick recap of everything, answer any questions that people have, because I know it seems like a lot, and for sixth and seventh grade, it's something completely new, because this is not the content or this is not the material that we were going over prior to us, having this break or having to deal with this pandemic. um, but yeah, I think if you go back through the work and just double check everything, make sure you got all the parts that you can answered. It's a lot of the papers, a lot of it's reading. It looks like there's approximately 32 pages here, and I'd say probably half or more than half of it is reading. So just make sure you're taking your time on it. Again, you don't need to try to get it all done by tomorrow or anything like that. You still have tomorrow, you got the rest of next week, and then we have spring break, and then I still think you even have a week after that. So we'll make sure we try to help you the best way we can. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have for you. If you got questions, like I said just a minute ago, um, ask it on Google Classroom, ask it on Hangouts, and we'll do our best to keep you guys updated and answer anything we can. Also, I know some of us maybe haven't had a chance to maybe look at this work yet. If you don't have a copy of this work, I did post a PDF of it on Google Classroom. So this is Lunar's Classroom, obviously, but it should be the same for Venus, Terra, Cosmic Fireball, whatever class you're in. It should be the very top thing. Again, I left a little message there if you needed a copy of the work packet. There's a PDF of it, and it is the same thing here. I know it's like 30 some pages. If you have that much paper and ink at home printed out, yeah, that'd be great. But I know ink is crazy expensive, so if you want to answer these questions on regular notebook paper, you can do that, or type it up in a Google Doc and share it with me or something. That's fine. But yeah, I just wanted to remind you, or I just wanted to let you guys know about that before I signed off. Well, it's about 11:30 at night here, so I'm going to call it a night, ladies and gentlemen. Again, sorry I couldn't stream for the full hour earlier today, so hopefully this video will make up for that. But I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon about 1 o'clock. If you are in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, more than welcome to join us. But it is the scheduled 6th grade time. But again, please join us if you have nothing better to do, or if you need to get caught up on some work, or you just want to talk a little bit, we can definitely do that. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.